Next up, we are bringing to the stage Paul Powers, who is the CEO of FISNA.
Hello, thanks for having me. I can't tell if this is on because I can't hear any noise back. All right, so I'm Paul, founder of FISNA. We started about 5 years ago. He wants me to sit down, so I'm going to do that. FISNA is short for physical DNA, and we take essentially data about the physical world, and we turn it into code so that software can understand it. You can do search with parts, etc. We've had the luck and fortune of being able to raise several rounds of funding over the past few years, and especially in the past year, of the 86 million we've raised to date, 76 million of that was in the past 12 months, and the 2 rounds were within 4 or 5 months of each other. And I remember a friend of mine, after the latest round of funding, calling me up on the phone and saying, like, "Congratulations, Paul, you've made it." I remember, I called him back because it was a text message, and he said, it's kind of a stupid statement for a few reasons. So first of all, I didn't make it. It was there's a lot of people in this company. And secondly, I made what? I made a big commitment to grow very, very rapidly to people who are putting other people's money into our company. And that's a commitment to take seriously. We didn't make it. We just started, right? We just embarked on the next chapter. And that's true every time that you raise funding, right? And so as a company that's been through quite a few rounds, I thought I might kind of share with you what it's like to go through that. I could sit here and talk a lot about FISNA, and trust me, that's my favorite thing to do. But I think that it might be more interesting for those of you who are listening at home to know, what insights I can share. Keep in mind that I'm a student myself, and by no means am I a mentor. I think an important lesson to keep in mind is the moment that you stop thinking of yourself as a student, you're not a mentor, you're obsolete. So keep that in mind. So just take everything I say with a grain of salt. Our journey was like this. When I had the idea for FISNA, I didn't know if it would work or not. It was a complicated series of equations that we had to turn into code that would allow models and 3D objects to make sense to computers. And there are a ton of use cases for it in engineering and supply chain, et cetera. But how to actually make that work was an unknown thing to me. We didn't know how exactly we were going to do it. We had a very strong hypothesis, but we didn't have a roadmap, and no company had done it before. So the first thing I did was spend a ridiculous amount of my own money. I, until very, very, very recently, was probably oversharing here, but I went $300,000 in debt to start FISNA. Before that, I had zero debt in my life. I went to university over in Germany. It was free. I always had a company that I was running to pay my way, so debt was a foreign concept to me until I started this company. And I say that because a lot of people are really good at this disease called excusitis. So they always have a reason why they're not starting their company. And what I tell people is, one thing that we all have in common is that we're all going to die, right? And that sounds a little harsh, but it's true. We all have an expiration date on us at some point. And you only get to live one time. And you're going to, maybe not if you're an entrepreneur, it might be a little bit less than this, but your average person is going to spend about a third of their life sleeping. And the rest of that time that you're awake, if you're running a company, a lot of that's going to be working. So why work for somebody else doing something that you don't love, doing something you're not passionate about? And then that's the story of your existence. That's the alpha and omega of what you've experienced here on Earth. It doesn't make sense. So I didn't come from a means. I didn't come with a giant check on day one to get started, but I did anyway. Now, it was a stupid risk because easily could have failed this company. It came very close to failing at the beginning because I almost ran out of money completely before I got the algorithm to work. But we were successful, and we raised our pre-seed and seed. We didn't do it institutionally. We raised it from private individuals. The first little bit of money was from people who knew me and were like, okay, I kind of feel sorry for you putting so much of your own time and money into this thing. Maybe I'll help you out a bit. And then eventually we had something that made wealthier individuals take notice. We raised our Series A in 2019. To put it in perspective, we started this company in 2015. It took us 4 years to get from starting the company to actually raising institutional money. And we actually had several offers. We had offers from VCs on the West Coast and the East Coast, down south, and the process was a nightmare. I pitched well over 100 times. And eventually, when the term sheets came in, it was time to choose. Luckily we had the option of choosing what term sheet do you want to accept. And we chose Drive Capital, and the reason why was just because the partner there really understood what FISNA does. He understands the whole concept of a Google of 3D. He was a very experienced, not just VC, but someone who'd worked with Google in the early days and had seen new markets emerge, new technologies emerge, new categories. And so that's the reason I took that term sheet. And to be totally frank, it wasn't even the best term sheet compared to the others, but it's that important. When you take institutional money, when you bring an investor onto your company, it's kind of like getting married, but probably harder to end, right? You're really stuck with that person for a long time, and it's important that not only that you get along together, but that they understand where you're going, and don't take that for granted, right? So is it hard to raise money? If you look at the statistics, and Savo brought up a good point about this earlier, 9 out of 10 startups fail. I read somewhere that only 1 in 2,000 startups manage to raise venture capital. You're not playing roulette, right? I personally hate gambling. I hate going to casinos because I know that they were able to build this casino because you typically lose. In the startup world, it's different. You're not reliant on economic conditions, other people to determine your success. It's helpful if things go your way, but it's not mandatory that they do. You can succeed mainly off of your own actions. Anyway, so Series A was challenging, but we eventually were able to raise that money. And about 3 months after we raised that money, my co-founder suddenly died. He passed away of a heart attack, and I remember I was actually about to get on a plane to Tokyo to go to an important sales conference, and literally almost as I was boarding the plane, I got a text message saying, "Don't go," and I turned around and came back. That was on a Sunday. The next day, on Monday, I drove up to our Cincinnati office, told everybody, let them have the day off, drove up to Columbus, told the office up there, told them to take the day off, and was devastated. I didn't know how our company would survive. Most people I talked to said, if something like that happens, you should expect about a third of your company to turn over. About a third of the people are going to get scared, they're going to leave, and they'll leave, and they'll find something safer. And no one did. And the reason why no one did, and goes back to the same skill set, if you want to call it that, that made Series A possible, which, by the way, is not all that different from Series B or Series C. The only difference between them is how much money you're raising, what the valuation is, and to some extent, what the expectations are from a product maturity perspective, et cetera. So if you're able to raise an A, if your company's successful, raising a B, raising a C, it's not going to get harder. It'll be different, but it won't be harder. The most important thing is, how do you raise money? How do you pitch an investor? And the truth is, it's not all that different from pitching a co-founder, from pitching an employee. There's an old adage that says, if you want to be successful in sales, you have to believe in your product. And I think that if you're a founder and if you're going to be a successful CEO, you have to believe not only in yourself, but much more importantly, in the vision. You have to believe in what you're doing. And if you're not motivated, you can't motivate others. If you're not inspired by what you're doing, you're not going to inspire others. And if you are, others will follow. And I don't consider myself to be the most charismatic person on earth by any means. But I'm very passionate about what we do. And our team believes in what we do. And that's what drew the VCs to us. That's how we were able to raise the money we were able to raise. I wish I could tell you it was a simple trick, that it's like, oh, you got to use this pitch deck versus that pitch deck, or say these magical words. Those are tactics. But at the end of the day, if you really believe in what you're doing, if it's your reason for getting out of bed in the morning, if it's the thing that gives you purpose in life, and you can tell that story and get others excited about it too, you'll hire the right team, no matter how hard it is to hire right now. You'll raise the amount of money that you need, and if you have tragedy in your company, you'll overcome it. Instead of having 1/3 turnover, we had exactly 0. 0 people left the company after our co-founder passed away. And even though a lot of people were worried that that might be the end, we were able to actually hire an extremely talented CTO to help with the company, who we were able to recruit out of Google. He was in the office of CTO at Google Cloud, and convinced him to take an 83% pay cut and move across the country to join our Ohio-based startup. There's not a wise economic reason that you can give to justify that. It's meaning, it's purpose. And I think if you're going to raise capital and you're going to grow a company, it all comes down to the mindset and your drive. And so whatever's keeping you from starting the company right now, whatever's keeping you from going all in, leaving your job to run the company, that's the one skill set I think you need to develop in order not only to start, but to go all the way through. and it doesn't get that much more complicated. The rest of the skills you learn because you're motivated to learn. That's all I got.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. One last question for you before we close out this particular session on reflections. As you think about your journey as a founder and as you continue to grow, what is the one muscle that you have continued to develop in this process that makes you successful?
There's a lot of muscles you have to develop. It's kind of like asking somebody who wants to be an athlete, well, what was the one muscle that you used that helped you win the Olympics, right? Mm-hmm. You have to be well-rounded in a lot of ways. But I think that the reason, what drives you to be a successful Olympic athlete, which, by the way, you can probably tell from looking at me, I'm not exactly an Olympic athlete. I'm using this as an analogy. But to be successful in a startup or in anything in life, it really just comes from drive. You have to be driven. And if you try an exercise, like how long can you hold your breath before breathing is the most important thing to you, there's nothing you want more in the world than to breathe. If you try holding your breath for 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it is you can manage, all you can think about is breathing. And when you can get to that level of desire for success and that level of passion for what you're doing, I think success sort of becomes inevitable as long as you can maintain that.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of the viewers. Thank you to Savo Knott from Pieces, Irina Flipova from Electrata, Carl Governor from Homeshake Instruction, and Eric Folkert from Pay Theory, Dr. Rachel Angel from Puro, and Cecil Hogan from I got it right the first time. Renozy. And again, this particular session on Startup Reflections was presented by HCDC, a growth marketplace serving startups and early stage companies in Hamilton County, Ohio. For more information on HCDC, go to www.hcdc.com. Again, my name is Alan Woods from Mortar, based here in Cincinnati. If you want more information on how Mortar is bringing equity to entrepreneurship, please visit our website at www.wearemortar.com. Thank you guys and enjoy the rest of Startup Cincy Week.